The rain had been falling since dusk, a quiet, persistent drizzle that turned Bath's cobbled streets into mirrors of amber lamplight. Inside the Georgian townhouse on Lansdowne Crescent, the only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, and the soft hiss of the fireplace in the living room. Emma stood at the front door, one hand on the brass knob, the other clutching a single train ticket, Berlin, 10:17 p.m. She wore her uniform of rebellion, a tailored charcoal wool coat that hugged her frame like armor, black ankle boots polished to a high sheen, and always, the emerald green silk scarf draped with careless elegance around her neck. It was her grandmother's. Her mother had begged her not to wear it out. Too bold, Elaine had said. Too much like her. But Emma wore it anyway, as if to say, I am not her. I am not you. Behind her, Elaine sat perfectly still on the velvet chaise, her cream linen dress crisp against the navy cashmere cardigan she never took off, even in summer. Her silver hair was pinned in its usual low knot, her hands folded neatly in her lap. A cup of Earl Grey cooled beside her untouched. She had not moved since Emma walked in. I'm leaving, Emma said. Not loudly, not dramatically, just like stating the weather. Elaine didn't look up. I know. You knew. I saw the ticket on the kitchen counter. I saw the packing. I saw the way you avoided my eyes all afternoon. Emma turned fully then, her scarf catching the firelight like a blade of jade. So why are you just sitting there? Why not scream? Why not cry? You always used to. When I was 15 and came home with piercings. When I dropped out of uni. When I told you I didn't want to learn French because it's dead. You used to make me cry. I'm not trying to make you cry now, Elaine replied, her voice low, steady as stone. I'm trying to make you remember. Emma lauket, sarup pritle. Remember what? That I'm your little project? That every choice I make has to be approved by you and your Victorian rulebook. Elaine stood, slowly, like a woman who had waited 20 years for this moment. She walked to the sideboard. Opened the third drawer, the one with the brass latch, the one Emma had never been allowed to open. From within she lifted it, the beechwood paddle, polished by time, worn smooth at the handle, darkened with decades of use. It had belonged to Elaine's father, then to her. Now it was Emma's turn. I didn't raise you to be afraid of the world, Elaine said, turning. I raised you to be wise in it. And tonight, you've chosen ignorance over wisdom. That's not rebellion, Emma. That's surrender. Emma's face hardened. Then I surrender. Elaine didn't move. Then you will sit on the table. Now. Emma didn't move. You're joking. I've never been more serious. You can't do this. I've done it before. To your aunt. To your cousin. To myself, when I was 17 and ran away to Cornwall with a boy who promised me freedom. Elaine stepped closer. And I'm doing it now, because I love you more than I fear your hatred. Emma backed up. Let go of me. Elaine didn't. She guided her, not roughly, but with the quiet authority of someone who had held the line for 20 years, to the mahogany dining table. The same table where Emma had done her homework as a child, where they'd shared Sunday roasts, where Elaine had once wiped her tears after her father's funeral. Lie down, Elaine said. No, Elaine lifted the paddle slightly, not threateningly, but with the weight of inevitability. Emma's breath hitched. She looked at the table, at the fireplace, at the photo on the mantel. Her father smiling, holding her as a toddler, his hand resting on her head. She hadn't looked at it in months. She didn't cry. Not yet. But her hands trembled. Slowly, shakily, she bent forward. Elaine pulled the hem of Emma's coat up. Then, with care, the black leggings, pulled down to mid-thigh. The emerald scarf, torn loose in the struggle, fell to the floor like a fallen leaf. Emma lay face down across the table, her forehead pressed into the cool wood. Her shoulders rose and fell. She didn't speak. Elaine stood behind her. Silence. Then the first strike. Thwack. One, Elaine said, voice calm as the tide. For ignoring my warning about that boy in Brighton who took your savings and vanished. You didn't tell me because you thought I'd disapprove of your choices. But I didn't disapprove of your choices. I disapproved of your silence. Thwack. 2. For calling your father's heritage archaic, when he spent his last year teaching you how to say, I love you in Urdu, the language of your grandfather, the man who walked 5 miles to school barefoot so you could sit in a university lecture hall. Thwack. 3. For throwing away your grandmother's locket, the one with her wedding photo inside, because you said it was too old-fashioned. That locket was all she had left of him, and you threw it in the bin like rubbish. Thwack. 4. For lying about your job. You're not a freelance designer. You're working at a cafe in Clifton, scrubbing dishes for £9 an hour, because you're too afraid to admit you don't know what you want. Thwack. 5. For calling me a jailer when I've spent every night wondering if I failed you. If I was too strict, too quiet, too afraid to hug you when you needed it most. Thwack. 6. For choosing to run instead of to grow. You think Berlin will save you? It won't. It'll just bury you under noise and strangers who don't care if you live or die. Thwack. 7. For forgetting that your mother didn't raise you to be perfect. She raised you to be seen, even when you didn't want to be. Thwack. 8. For making me do this. Thwack. 9. The 9th strike was softer, almost a whisper. Emma's body went rigid. Then slowly she began to shake. A sob broke free. Then another. Then she was crying, great heaving, silent sobs that shook her entire frame. Her face was buried in the tablecloth. Her hands clawed at the wood. I'm sorry, she choked. I'm sorry, Mommy. I didn't know. I didn't know you were still holding on to all of it. Elaine lowered the paddle. She didn't speak. She didn't touch her. Not yet. The fire crackled. The rain drummed against the glass. And for the first time in years, the house didn't feel empty. It felt alive. After what felt like forever, Emma rolled over onto her side. Her cheeks streaked with tears, her thighs burning, her scarf lying forgotten on the floor. Elaine knelt beside her. Not close. Not too close. Just close enough to be heard. I didn't want you to become me, she said quietly. I didn't want you to be quiet. I didn't want you to be afraid to speak. I wanted you to be strong enough to choose wisely, not recklessly. I wanted you to carry your father's name with pride, not shame. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound journal. The cover was worn, the edges frayed. The spine bore a single word, embossed in gold, Safar, journey. Emma stared. This was your father's, Elaine said. He wrote in it every day, even after he got sick. Even when he could barely hold the pen. He wrote about you. About your laugh. About the way you used to steal his tea. About how he prayed you'd never forget where you came from. Emma reached out, slowly, hesitantly, and took the journal. Her fingers trembled. She opened it. The first page was dated 2005. Asterisk today, Emma asked me why we say namaste instead of hello. I told her it means, I honor the light in you. She rolled her eyes. I didn't mind. I hope one day, she'll understand that honoring your roots isn't weakness, it's courage. Asterisk tears fell onto the page. I thought you hated me, Emma whispered. I didn't hate you, Elaine said. I loved you too much to let you disappear. Emma looked up, really looked, at her mother. Not as a figure of authority, not as a gatekeeper, but as a woman who had buried her own grief, so her daughter could breathe. I'm sorry, Emma said again, voice raw. I'm so sorry. Elaine reached out then, and placed her hand, gently, slowly, on Emma's shoulder, just once, and didn't move. The train left at 10:17. Elaine drove. Neither spoke. At the station, Emma stepped out. She didn't take her coat. She didn't take her bag. She just stood on the platform, watching the rain. Then slowly she took off the emerald scarf. She folded it, carefully, precisely, the way her grandmother used to, and placed it on the bench beside her mother's handbag. She turned, walked back, to the car, to her mother. She didn't hug her, didn't say anything, just opened the passenger door, and sat down. Elaine started the engine. They drove home in silence. Inside, Emma didn't go to her room. She went to the sideboard, opened the drawer, looked at the paddle, closed it. Then, quietly, she opened the journal again and began to read. Outside, the rain stopped. The clouds parted. A single star blinked awake above the rooftops of Bath. On the hall stand beside her father's old tweed jacket, the one he wore every Sunday, hung Emma's charcoal coat. Not tossed, not crumpled, hung with care. On the chaise, the emerald scarf lay folded, perfect. The paddle rested in its drawer. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of the house, a daughter was learning, not from words but from silence, not from punishment, but from love. And for the first time in years, Elaine didn't feel like she had lost her daughter. She felt like she had found her. The next morning, Emma woke before dawn. She made tea, 2 cups. She placed one beside her mother's chair, and sat down, and opened the journal, and began to write. Asterisk her first entry asterisk today, I remembered who I am. And I remembered why I was taught to remember. Thank you, Mummy. Asterisk Emma.